All right, another one of these practice tests. Cramming. Feel bad, I'm cramming too after school. So this one starts off with a nice confidence boosting question. Find the equation of a line parallel past 0 point -1, 0. I think what I would do is I would just steal this thing's slope. So you know how to do that. 5y is negative 2x plus 8. Y is negative 2/5 x plus 8/5, whatever. That's what you want. In a perfect world, you'd use point slope form. In a perfect world, you would. That's what I'm going to use. Y minus y1 equal to m times, I just need to write it down, x minus x1. Of course, you get x1 and y1 from that little point over there. So y minus 0 equal to negative 2/5 of x minus a negative 1. So plus plus, y is negative 2/5 x minus 2/5. Choice E. Find the domain. So this is really, really easy, but the issue is remembering. You know you can take the square root of 0, it's 0. You can take the square root of 1, it's 1. The square root of a negative number, however, is imaginary. So the deal is, for the square root of anything must be greater than or equal to 0. So 4 minus x greater than or equal to 0. I'm just going to move the x over there. 4 is less than or equal to x. In other words, x is less than or equal to 4. And they've got this written out using interval notation because you're supposed to be comfortable with both. And I believe that would be choice D. B is a very good distractor. You've done this, slightly different form. When I was in school, we used A. Now they do x plus h, but it's the same thing. This is still calculating what's finding a derivative. What you're doing is you're finding the derivative. It's one of the first things they teach in a calculus class is this right here. It's probably the only pre-calc in pre-calculus. Anyways, they want us to find f of a plus h, so I'll do that. Every single x becomes an a plus an h. The answer choice to this one should be 2. Should be that one. I feel like it is. Anyways, we'll see if I'm right. Usually when we do derivatives in calculus, we don't worry about the stuff left over. Where was I? That's an a plus an h. So a plus h times a plus h, if you write it twice, is a squared plus 2ah plus h squared. Then minus 3a minus 3h. All right, so every bit of this nasty looking stuff is going to go right there. That's where I'm going to put it. Notice I have to take away f of a. F of a happens when you let x be an a. I'm not going to show that written out. If I let x be a there, that's 2a squared. If I let x be a there, that's minus 3a. And it's all over the letter h. Now what's going to cancel here is 2a squared minus 2a squared. And a negative 3a minus a negative 3a is going to cancel. So those two things disappeared. And we're left with 4ah plus 2h squared. Oh, I missed it, didn't I? No, I didn't. Minus 3h over h. Get to cancel some h's here. Those four pieces all have an h. So 4a minus 3 plus 2h is the final answer. Number 4, we got a piecewise function. Find f of negative 1 plus f of 4 given the function. You just have to know where you can plug in. That's all you have to do. A negative 1 can be plugged in right here. And a 4 can be plugged in right here. So if I take a negative 1 and I square it and add 1, I get a 2. If I take a 4, triple it, I'm at 12, take away 1, I'm at 11. And I'm just going to add 13. Choice D. And we successfully made it through page 1 of many. The graph of the function y equals f of x is given below. Select the answer choice that represents the graph of f of x plus 2 minus 1. Every one of you should get this. Every one of you should. This is left 2, down 1. That's all it is, left 2, down 1. So I should be, if I look at this point right here should move to negative 3, 0. Because I'm going to go left 2, down 1. And it looks like choice B has that happening. Moving on to, and so that's assuming everything else did. Looks like it did. I like this question. Which of the following functions have an inverse function on the domain negative infinity to positive infinity? So hopefully you understand inverses are basically just the opposite function. This guy right here would have an inverse equal to the fourth root of t. And its domain would be that t is greater than or equal to 0 because you can only take the fourth root of positive numbers. So it's not choice 1. This is a line. Let's write its inverse. To write an inverse, the first thing we do is we swap x and y. That's what I'm going to do here. Then we resolve for y. So I'm going to subtract the 1. I'm going to divide by the 3. And I'm going to get that the inverse function, this is what g, inverse of g sub t, is x over 3 minus a third. And this is still a line. The inverse of a line is still a line. Lines go on forever. They go from negative infinity to positive infinity. So choice 2 for sure. The third one, h of t is the sine of t. Its inverse would literally be inverse sine. That's what it would be. Now, inverse sine, I don't know what you guys will remember. Inverse sine can only return angles in quadrants, what, 1 and 4? And the big thing is that it takes a sine ratio as its input. And a sine ratio is stuck between 0 and 1. That's its domain. So the only thing we could be would be choice 2, g sub t. All right, if 2, negative 5 is a point on the graph of f of x, which of the following points must be on the graph of y equals 1/3 f of x minus 1. We did one of these in class today. It's Thursday when I'm doing this recording. I'm going to handle this first. That means 1/3 of y. This is 1/3 of f of x. Do that first. Remember PEMDAS. We multiply before we add and subtract. So the original point was 2, negative 5. If I take a third of y, I'd be at 2, negative 5/3. Because I take a third of negative 5 and so forth. And then I've got this guy right here, which means right 1. So I'm going to handle this x minus 1. I'm going to move right 1. And ta-da, there she is, choice E. Number 8, find the inverse function. And again, to write an inverse, we swap x and y, and then we resolve for y. So this f of x will become an x, and that x will become a y. We'll just 3y plus 1 both sides. Because of what it causes to happen. I know a lot of kids, they just get bothered by that. The reason we do it is because of the outcome. because we've seen it done and like, oh, that's what somebody did. That's what we do. Probably distribute 3yx plus x is 3. And again, the reason I do that is because I know the outcome. The outcome is I get something that will factor. And I can pull, oh, we're solving for y, right? So this bad boy's over there. I'm going to play the isolation game. And if I'm solving for y, I just have to divide out 3x. That's what I'm looking for. Apparently I have a typo. That was a 2, not a 3. Easy fix. 2 minus x over 3x. Choice B. Vertex of a parabola given by the equation h of x is kx squared minus x plus 1, where k is a positive constant, is, and this is really easy, the x-coordinate of the vertex is found or happens at opposite b over 2a. Well, a is k, b is negative 1, and that's all I need. So it happens at negative 1 over 2k. Sorry, opposite b, positive 1 over 2k, which at least throws away d. Now, the y-coordinate vertex is found by plugging in. The y-coordinate vertex happens when I plug that in. It's going to be k times 1 over 2k squared minus 1 over 2k plus a 1. Squaring 1 over 2k is 1 over 4k squared. You still got that k out front. And this will reduce on down. The k's cancel to some degree. So 1 over 1/4 k, all right, minus a half of a k plus a 1. And those two can be put together and you get negative 1/4 of k plus a 1. Choice C. I'll pause this. I am tired, so let me get some fresh air for just a second. Fresh air achieved. Maybe you can see it. Given that x equals negative 1 is a 0 of this polynomial, what is the sum? That's kind of the trick on this one. What is the sum of the other zeros? So let's just do a little synthetic division. This one you got to be careful about. You need that placeholder. And we drop, and we multiply, and we add, and we multiply, and we add, and we multiply, and we add. And remember the way things work. Constant xx squared, 16x squared minus 16x plus 3 is where the other two zeros are. I'm just seeing if this thing factors, and it does. That's how she factors. Outside's minus 12, inside's minus 4. It's minus 16. If we solve, we get 1/4, and we get 3/4. And they want the sum. 1/4 plus 3/4 is 1. Done. Another inverse. Now, first off, this is exponential. The inverses of exponentials, hopefully you remember this, are logarithms. So A and B are gone. Use little things like that. And what we'll do is we'll do our old swap x and y again. And then we'll convert to a logarithm. She shall be a log base 2, because this is my base, whose answer or argument is the old answer, and equals the exponent. And there you go. And that ought to be enough for you to choose choice D. Find the range of the function g of x is negative e to the x minus a plus b, where a and b are positive integers. All right. And you don't have a calculator, which really sucks. What you have to know is that exponential growth looks like that. That's what it looks like. This thing is going to go right A units and then up B units. And this little guy right here is an x-axis reflection. And it's the most important thing other than this one. So if I do the negative e to the x, I would look like this. That's what I'd look like. If I shift it right, if I do negative e to the x minus a, all I can tell you is that the thing got moved to the right something. Got moved right a units. Still looks like this. Now I can handle the adding of the b, and that's going to cause a vertical shift up, and we'll call this b. And now it's going to look like this. So how does that help me find the range? Well, the range is down here from negative infinity, which I wrote as a sideways, wrote as an 8 by 8 chance, all the way to b. That's it. Negative infinity to b. Ta-da! 13. Something about Bob. Bob is making a rectangular garden next to his home. He has 100 feet of fencing and plans to use the sides of his home as one side of the garden. Assume the width of the garden is W. Write the area of the garden as a function of W. He has 100 feet of fencing. So if this is W, this is W. And all the way around is 100 foot. And 2 W's are accounted for. So that is my length. Area has always been length times width. The length would be 100 minus 2W. And the width here is W. And that's negative 2W squared and 100W. Choice E. I guess I should keep going. Be less I have to do tomorrow. Find the domain of the function f of x is the natural log of x minus 1 plus 3. For a log that contains anything in the world, anything is bigger than 0. So in this case, x minus 1 is bigger than 0. X is bigger than 1. That looks like choice D written out as an interval. We got function composition. F of g of x, better known as f composed of g of x, means that that x becomes x minus 1. And of course, they're going to have you add fractions together. They are. It's just the way it is. To add two fractions together, you have to have a common denominator. So we can turn 1 over 1 into x minus 1 over x minus 1 because that's still 1. And then we can actually add things together. X minus 1 plus 1 is just x, and then x minus 1 for the denominator. 16. The remainder r when f of x is 20x cubed minus 4x cubed plus x squared minus 3x plus 2 is divided by x plus 1 is, you'd be very tempted to do synthetic division, but you don't need to. This literally means that x is negative 1, right? X plus 1 is 0. We're just going to find f of negative 1. Somebody can do synthetic division. They're going to waste a whole lot of their time. A negative 1 to an even power is positive. A negative 1 to a odd power is negative. Negative times negative is positive. And there's my remainder. 24, 25, 27, 30. And the last one, I am going to stop because I'm just brain dead tired. So I want you to literally find f over g. 1 plus 1 over x, sitting pretty over x plus 1. And I don't know how you guys are going to do this. I'm just going to do this the long way. 1 is better known as x over x. Now I can add these together. It becomes x plus 1 over x, and I am dividing by x plus 1, which, by the way, exists over a 1. Now I can multiply by the reciprocal. And then I have my cancellation, and that is my result, 1 over x. Choice D. And yeah, Milbrath done. Milbrath is done. Till tomorrow. Have a good night.